Welcome to the Writer's Journey podcast. I'm Michael Laran, a science fiction and fantasy author on a journey to go from nobody to bestseller, and I'm documenting every step of the way. Tune in every week as I pull back the curtain on my writing life and how I'm building a writing career while working a full-time job, raising a family, and attending law school classes in the evenings. You can find show notes for this week's episode, a free starter library of my fiction, and much more at michaellaran.com. Hello and welcome to episode 157. 157 is a good number, and the title of this week's episode is Deepfakes for Authors. And this podcast is going to be some off-the-cuff thoughts that I had after seeing a very interesting and somewhat disturbing video over the past weekend it's got me thinking about this particular technology and what the pros will possibly be, what the cons will possibly be, and some things that I'm thinking about just in my own author career about how to cope with this technology as it matures. And so we're going to talk about that today. But real quick announcements. Thank you to everyone who attended the last Power Hour this past weekend. You can watch the replay in the show notes. Some people have told me that they like to watch the replays, and we had a great time, and we got a lot of writing done. So I think I got about 1,500 words done. There were some people who got even more than that, and so it's really cool to see the Writing Power Hour become a staple in a lot of people's months. It just becomes a great way to get in words. So the next one will be the first Saturday in April, which I believe is April 6th. So I will put that on my YouTube, and you can watch for that. But I'd love to have you join me if you're looking for something to do on a Saturday and want to get some words in. Now, the second thing I wanted to let you know about is a deal that I participated in last year that some people emailed me after the fact and said, hey, I would really like to know if you do this again, and hey, is this ever going to come back? And I am talking, of course, about the Writer's Craft Superstack 2.0. Well, they decided to bring it back for 1 week only, and this is 21 courses for writers, 17 ebooks for writers, 6 masterclasses for writers, and it is an amazing value at only $49. And one of my books is in this stack, just transparently, 250 plus writing tips, volume 1, a tip for just about every working day of the year for your writing to help you become better and become a better writer faster and smarter. That is in the Super Stack, as well as some great resources by many names in the self-publishing space that you would recognize. Again, only $49. We did this in November, and it was a hit. Many of you purchased it and said, this is fantastic. I love how this works. So just want to let you know it's available again, and it's only going to be available for this week. So if you're listening to this when the episode is hot, when it is live, please, please, please make sure that you click on it, because it is going to go away, and they have told me that this is the last time that they're going to run this particular stack. So please make sure that you get it done, and only $49, and it's a great way to start the year. And if you're looking to move the needle and get some things done and sell more books and become a better writer, I love this stack. It's the only major deal that I participate in each year. I get a lot of pitches for, hey, Michael, would you mind putting your book in this stack or this bundle? We'd love to have you in this and that. And I say no to just about everything. I like these guys because they run a very slick operation, and what you see is what you actually get, which I appreciate. All right. And many of you who have purchased it have reached out to me and have said, hey, this is the real deal. And that's a good thing. All right. So link is in the show notes. Do not delay. All right. Wins for the week. So, all right. So I guess I have to let you guys know how my challenge went. We should probably talk about that before we talk about the deepfake thing. So here's the good thing. The good thing is I got some words down. The bad thing is I kind of bombed the challenge. It started off not so good, and then it just got even worse. First day, I think I wrote like 3,000 words. Second day, I wrote 3,400. Third day, I wrote like 2,500. And then I never got over that $5,000 or 5,000 word mark. There were a few reasons for it. Had some family issues that came up with the health of a family member the day before the challenge started, and that kind of derailed everything. And also had some things come up at work, and so it's like you make the best plans, and they don't always happen the way you want them to happen. And so out of the 10 days, most of the days I got, I think I got over 1,000. There were some days where I didn't, but overall, I ended the challenge with about 15,000 words toward the novel. So far, far short of where I needed to be. And right now, I'm at around the 20,000 word mark, and I think I'm on like day 12, or day 13. So definitely, definitely didn't hit that goal. But if I continue on my current pace, I should have this thing done by the end of March. Maybe not by the time my law school class starts, but certainly close to it. So, if anything, you set goals. No one's going to come to my house and shoot me because I bombed this challenge, but I am going to get a rematch. I'm going to get a rematch at some point, and I will succeed. But hey, it happens. You make challenges. You have some fun. I learned quite a bit about this and what it might take in the future to be able to write 5,000 words of fiction, of good fiction per day. And so I've taken that lesson, and I'm happy with the fact that I've got about 20,000 words toward book 2 of my new urban fantasy series. And this next week I think I'm going to have some good time to get things done, and it'll get done when it gets done, and I'll be proud of it just the same. All right, so that's my win for the week, 20,000 words toward book 2 of this series, and my lose for the week is that I bombed the challenge. But hey, that's how it goes. Now, my lesson learned this week. This is a lesson that I'm going to be utilizing later this summer. So I haven't officially announced it. I guess this is the official announcement, but I am going to be published in Writer's Digest. So the May and June issue of the magazine, I will have an article in the magazine about writer's block. So I had that opportunity, and it's going to be really cool. It's not every day that you get published in a traditional media you get your article published in Writer's Digest, which is the largest magazine for writers in the world. They had just a great staff there, and they were very supportive of the article, and I think it's going to look great. And so I'm excited about that, and I'll be sure to share more about that when it comes out. But I'm also going to be speaking this year at the annual Writer's Digest conference. Not sure if it's going to be in New York City or not. That's usually, I think they alternate it between New York City and California, but I will be there this year, either virtually or in person. So if anyone is interested in attending, if you happen to be in the area and you want to go to a conference, I will be there, and I'm going to be facilitating 3 things. The first thing is going to be a day-long workshop on the ultimate self-publishing masterclass. So 8 hours with me talking about self-publishing and what you should be doing, how to set yourself up for success early on. It is the ideal class for beginners. All right, so I'll be teaching that. I'll also be doing a conference version of my Learn Scrivener in 20 Minutes video. So it's my most popular video on my channel. I will be doing a 30-minute or 30 to 45-minute session on Scrivener and the best tips and tools and tricks to use to master that app. And then I will also be doing a conference session on author branding and how branding is everything and how you can take some steps to improve your author brand. So what are those things? I don't know yet because I still need to design the material. I just pitched a few things, and they're like, hey, we like all of these. Please come on. So, yep, that's the news. I will be appearing there in the summer. And then I will be at another conference. I don't know if I'm ready. I'm able to announce that yet. That will be in June. That'll be virtual, but it's a pretty big conference as well. So conference season is starting back up, and it's going to be very interesting, very, very interesting moving forward. So the lesson I learned this week, because I know I'm getting on a tangent, is I learned a new way of teaching author material. So I'm going to be probably debuting this on my YouTube channel as I get the kinks out of it. But I bought a digital tablet. And when I say tablet, I mean like a pen tablet. So like a Wacom, I bought a Wacom Intuos. And it's a tablet where you get a little pen, and it's what designers use to draw and illustrate. Well, I got that, but I also got a free open source whiteboard software. It's called OpenBoard. Check it out if you're interested. And I basically linked the two of those up together, and now I can basically use it as like a chalkboard while I'm teaching things. And so that's the method I'm gonna be teaching this masterclass at the Writer's Digest conference. And so I think it's a great way to teach material on my YouTube channel as well, particularly on live streams. So I was playing around with that and trying to figure out how to convey ideas in a different way compared to just a boring old PowerPoint or just talking behind a microphone. Wouldn't it be interesting to add a different element to what I'm doing? So I had some opportunity to play around with that, and that was my lesson learned this week. Now, idea of the week. Now, this is an interesting one. We are writers, right? I mean, that's what we do. But we work with a lot of people who I'm just not so sure that we always understand what their view of the world is. So this past few weeks, I've been working on my automation and editing project. And I've had a lot of emails back and forth with my editor on just trying to figure out how she sees the world. What are you thinking of when you're working on my novels? What is the training of an editor look like? How do you structure your time when you are working through a manuscript? What is the process of how you approach this? I think these are all important questions. They're vitally important questions because if you understand how your editor works, you can accommodate them better when it comes to sending them your manuscript, right? I mean, I think it's a great idea to make sure that you make your editor's life as easy as possible, which is one of the reasons I automated a lot of my editing so that I'm more consistent, so that she doesn't have to worry about making the same edits over and over and over. But you don't come to that level of understanding until you actually put yourself in their shoes. And so I had the opportunity, I didn't participate in this, but the company I work for, a long time ago, they had a program. It was called a leadership rotational program. And what it was is they were looking for people that they could develop quickly into leaders. And as you probably know, one of the easiest ways to become a leader, and when I say leader, I mean like executive at a company, is to serve in a lot of different departments so that you have a broader, wider understanding of how the different departments work so that you can be a more effective leader. So what they did was they would put you in one department for 6 months, and then you would go to another department for 6 months, and then you would go to another department for 6 months, and then you would finish out in a final department for 6 months. So you would get experience in 4 different business units, and you would actually do the job, and you would sit in with manager meetings. You would be in the front lines. You would visit customers in the field. All of these things, you would basically were whatever that job title was for 6 months, and then you moved on. And I thought I don't remember what got me thinking about that, but I thought that's a phenomenal way to think about writing. Like, what if you did a writing rotational program? Like, what would it take to say, I'm going to pretend that I'm going to become an editor? What does the training of an editor look like? Like when someone wakes up in the morning and says, you know what, I want to edit books for a living. What is the next step that they take? And then what's the step after that? So what if you built out a career path, or talked to an editor, for example, and you built out a career path on what it was that they did in order to get the experience they needed to take their first job? And what if you went through that exact same training, word for word, hour for hour? And then what if you stopped just before you were ready to take your first manuscript? So you become trained as an editor, but you don't actually become an editor, right? And then what if you did the same thing with a cover designer? Someone wakes up in the morning and they say, I want to be a cover designer. What does that look like? And it's different for everybody, right? But what does that look like? And then how can you learn the basics of Photoshop, the basics of design? What are the things that a designer eats, sleeps, and dreams about? And how can you create some test designs up to the point where you're ready to design something for someone? You know, what about a book formatter? What that one is probably the most simple of all of them, what are the things you need to learn to be a book formatter, to publish, to format someone's ebooks and paperbacks? Interesting concept. And so what if you did that with all of the different service providers that you have contact with on a regular basis? What might that tell you and teach you about how you can work with them better, more effectively in the future, and more importantly, how you can create a better, higher quality product that your readers are going to see the value in? So that's this idea of becoming cross-functional. Now that I'm finishing up my law degree, I'm actually thinking about that. I thought, well, gosh, wouldn't it be funny, or would it be interesting if I just said, I pretended like I was going to become an editor, and I joined an editing society and did all these different things and got training to be a copy editor. Wouldn't that be interesting? I mean, I would never edit anyone's book, but it would be, if I ever lost my job or something, it'd be kind of an interesting thing to fall back on maybe. All right, so that's the concept here, is becoming cross-functional as an author. All right, so that is idea of the week. So let's talk about the topic. So it's taken me a minute to get to this, but the topic of this week's episode is deepfakes for authors. And first, we should probably talk about what a deepfake is, because I recognize there may be some people who've maybe heard of the term, but aren't familiar with what it is. Deepfake is a type of artificial intelligence. And what it is it's artificially generated content on top of existing content. So for example, take a video of Barack Obama, and maybe he's giving a State of the Union speech or some sort of speech. And you can take his voice and you can take his face and you can make it look like he's saying things that he never said. So maybe he's giving a speech on something, right? And then someone manipulates the speech to make it sound like he's trying to incite a war halfway around the world, right? And that is essentially what the technology does. It's audio and visual, but it's artificially generated to where, in a perfect world, if the technology served its purpose and did what it was supposed to do, you wouldn't be able to tell that the video was fake because it would be so convincing. And it's really amazing. I mean, if you just Google or go on YouTube and look up deep fakes, and you'll see how far the technology has come. The Barack Obama video is one. There's one where there's a comedian who does like a Barack Obama impersonation. They took his voice and his face and put it on Obama's to make it look like Obama was saying those things. Another example is I saw over the weekend, or near the end of February for Black History Month, they took video, like old photos of like Frederick Douglass and other Black icons, and they animated the images, so it made it look like these old portraits of Frederick Douglass were moving. Almost reminded me of like Harry Potter, like the newspaper in Harry Potter, how it's like holographic. That's kind of what it looked like. But they did that because they were able to find a bunch of different images, and they were able to make them look like the article or the image was three-dimensional. Really, really interesting and very, very realistic. Another example, there was a Macaulay Culkin Home Alone video where it was one of the famous scenes from Home Alone, and every time Macaulay spoke, they made his face look like Sylvester Stallone. So it literally, like, every time he went to speak, it sounded like Sylvester's voice, even though it was coming from Macaulay Culkin. And it looked a little fake, but just imagine, I mean, there's all sorts of different technologies and things that can be done with this. There's another comedian who was he was on like a late night show, and he was impersonating, I think it was Al Pacino and Arnold Schwarzenegger. And every time he spoke, like, it was his regular face, but anytime he went to do the impersonation, his face morphed into like a bastardization between his face and Arnold's face. Really, really creepy. because it looks very, very convincing. So that's another way to do it. Also in the porn space, people have taken celebrity faces and put them on models to make it look like Ariana Grande or Britney Spears or someone like that is actually in a porn video. And the technology is becoming more and more convincing. So that's kind of a cliff notes of what it is. And I know I'm not doing the technology justice, but I'm just trying to keep it high level. All right, so that leads me to this video that I saw over the weekend, and maybe you saw it too. And that was this video of Tom Cruise. And the kicker is that it was not Tom Cruise. So I'll link to it in the show notes. It's about I think it's like a 1.5 minute video. It's not very long. Definitely take a look at it, because a lot of people are saying that this is a watershed moment in deepfakes. It's possibly one of the best deepfakes that's been done up until this point. And what it is it's Tom Cruise, or what it is it's an actor. And they basically took Tom Cruise's face and his likeness and put it on top of this actor. So it looks like Tom Cruise, but it's not. But it looks like Tom Cruise, and he's doing all these different things. And he's, for the most part, speaking nonsense. and just watch it. It's really, really creepy. And people were just shocked. They're like, wow, this really looks like it. If you watch it and you didn't know it was a deep fake, you almost would not know that this was a fake video, Yeah, so I'll link to that. Watch that video, because it got me thinking, wow, this technology is really, really dangerous in the wrong hands. The good thing about it is that you still need video to do something, video or audio to do something about it. So like, for example, this actor had to still do the video, but so there's that. Like, you can't just generate, Tom Cruise walking and doing something out of nowhere. Like, there has to be some sort of source material. It's that people take the source material and manipulate that to where you don't know that it's real. All right. So this got me thinking about myself and, just what this means for potentially me and other people who may have to deal with this at some point. Now, most people listening, this is one of those things where it's not necessarily an issue that's gonna, like, you don't have to worry about someone making a deep fake of you for the most part, right? The bigger thing you have to worry about is, how do you discern truth in a world where everything around you is potentially fake, or you're questioning whether something is fake or whether it's real. Now, the weakness that someone like me has, though, and this is a unique exposure for someone like me and someone who is an influencer, right, is that someone could make a deep fake of me. I mean, think about it like this. I mean, I think about all the videos that I have floating out there on YouTube. I have over 300 videos on YouTube. I have hours and hours of podcast audio. I've done probably dozens of hours of podcast interviews with other people on their channels. Hell, if someone wanted to make a deep fake of me, they could easily do it. And that's another thing about it, is that the technology is easy enough to use now that you can put together a deep fake without really having any kind of technological know-how. It's become democratized, right? So someone like me who has lots of content out there, I could be a sitting duck for something like this, and someone could release a video that makes me say something about some author or something like that, and then I have to, people are like, oh, Michael Laurent, F that guy, cancel that guy, and that becomes a potential exposure. Now, will that happen? I don't know, but it's definitely something you got to think about, especially if you put a lot of content out there, right? Because one of the things that I want to do with my own audio, and I've talked about this on the show before, is one of the things I want to do, and this is where this technology can come in handy and can do good things, right? Is that I want to create a voice double of my voice, so that when I'm recording audiobooks, people can pay premium dollar to hear me listen to me read my own audiobooks, but they could pay maybe a little bit less, and they can get an AI version of my voice that will do the same inflections, speak at the same cadence, do all that. It sounds like me. It's not me, but it's convincing enough, and it's okay for what you want, for what you're paying. So that's a use of the technology I think that is promising, and there are services out there that are helping people do that right now. So I'm not one of those people. I'm not an alarmist. Like I'm talking about some things here that are a little scary and they're a little disturbing, but I think the answer with technology is that it's always somewhere in the middle. Don't be so scared of technology that you don't take action or that you can't see what the potential good use cases are. So let's talk about the bad first. Let's talk about the bad things first. So how can influencers in the future or people in the future protect themselves against deepfakes or crimes? So for example, someone takes some of my video and they put me on a surveillance camera, where some guy robbed a bank. Oh, Michael Laurent robbed a bank. Oh my God, this guy's a fraud, and I get arrested. I don't know. I'm taking this I'm exaggerating a little bit because, if you really start to think about this, how could that really happen? But it's possible, right? I mean, it's absolutely possible. I mean, yeah, the police would know that it's probably going to be a fake, but who's to stop somebody from distributing that across the internet? Oh, Michael Laurent is this guy's a fraud, and did you know that he probably robbed a bank 10 years ago and no one ever caught him for it? That sort of thing. It's just it's one of those things that people can do to muddle the conversation and cast doubt in people's minds about the integrity of another person. I think that's the real problem with this technology, because there's no way right now to really know if you're looking at a deepfake or not. And as the technology gets better, if you can't distinguish or discern what's real, how are you going to make decisions in the future, right? Now, the second disturbing thing, and this is more of a corporate thing, but I think about social engineering. You hear every once in a while about these phone calls that people make to Amazon, and they make the representatives think that they're someone when they're actually not, and they trick service reps into divulging key information about accounts. You think about deepfakes and something like that, where you have somebody call and you speak into a voice modulator and it sounds like the customer. And they can use that to, I don't know, break into an account or something. I mean, it's interesting and disturbing at the same time, right? And then the third thing is, I don't know what the right way to call this would, but it would be like social media swatting. So a video comes out of some author saying something that they never said, and that person is forced to come onto the record and admit that they didn't say it or tell everyone they didn't say it. But by that point, it's too late. So it's kind of like when people call the SWAT team to your house, and they're hoping that you do something wrong so that you get shot, that sort of thing. It's interesting, right? I don't necessarily know that that's the exact same parallel, but it's interesting that you can find people having to put themselves on the defensive for things that they never said or that they never did. And so how do the authors of the future, or the influencers of the future for that matter, generate stamps of approval, or have some sort of authentication method so that you have a way of looking at an author's platform and knowing, okay, the author did this. Okay, the author did not do this. And I don't know that technology exists just yet. But those are some of the disturbing things, and that was just a really, really quick thought exercise. There's probably a lot more disturbing things that you can do in ways that you can take this technology. But let's talk about the good, because that's one thing I think we have to be very careful of. Right, we don't want to turn into traditional publishers, guys. We don't want to be the authors who romanticize how we do business so much that we miss the good things of the technology. Right. So here's some things I was thinking about that could be very, very helpful. The first thing I was thinking about is deepfakes could be very helpful for cover design. You're probably thinking, why would this be helpful for cover design? Well, this is just me. I'll speak for myself. I have this problem, and I know that there are a lot of authors in the community that have this problem, and that is, if you want to put a person of color on your cover, it is damn near impossible to find what you're looking for. Like it sucks. It's really difficult these days. You typically have to settle for either something that you're not happy with, or let's say you do find the right model on a stock photography site. Usually they're not going to be in the poses that you want, or there's not going to be enough good facial poses or facial expressions for that person. So like, for example, with my series Magic Trackers, I absolutely loved the model that my designer found. She was perfect. I thought she really matched my character Aisha, and everything was great. But there were only like 6 or 7 good poses of this model. And when I say good poses, everything from the neck down doesn't really matter, because a good designer can take a head and put it on somebody else's body. That's not really a big deal, right? But the problem was there weren't really good headshots. There weren't enough headshots of this particular model. So I knew that if I ever wanted to write more than, say, 5 books in this series, I was kind of going to be screwed, right? And that's one of the problems that you have with cover design. And this is beyond people of color as well, is that you got to find the right model that has enough poses. Otherwise, you're going to have to use 2 different models, and readers are going to be like, "Hey, wait a minute, this looks kind of weird," right? So how deepfakes can solve this problem potentially is you can basically take, let's just say, just for the sake of argument, 1,000 different models, and then you can blend them all together to where you have a model that's someone who's never really existed, but it's a person of color, and you can get whatever poses you want, right? That's intriguing to me. And then when you think about blockchain and cryptocurrencies, I'm a big believer in compensating people whose work contributes to a model. So, you can use blockchain. So if you select a model if you select a model, and then basically you select a model, and then through blockchain or crypto, the models who contributed to that fake model, they get compensated for the fact that they were used. I think that potentially solves this problem of people of color on book covers. I really do. I think that will completely eliminate it. I think it'll change the game in terms of models in general as well. So I'd be shocked if the Shutterstocks or the CanStocks or the Getty Images of the world aren't looking at this in some way, because what it could do is it also could potentially lower the cost of these stock photos as well. Because if you think about it, it takes a lot of energy and a lot of resources to generate them. I mean, you got to have a photographer, right? And then that photographer has to go places. They have to either go places, or they have to take images in a studio. That takes a lot of time, effort, and energy. And you think about this technology, you could potentially get this at the click of a button. And I know photographers aren't going to necessarily be happy about that, but that's just progress, right? Now, the next thing I thought that this could be an interesting use for is for fan art, character art, or illustrations of characters. So one of the things that I've always wanted to do, I've never done it because I've been too big of a chicken, and maybe I'm a little too cheap to do this, is to do character art of my characters. Like, I've always dreamed of illustrating a scene or two from all of my novels. Like, what would that look like if I took a scene from, like, what is the iconic scene from every one of my novels, and then put those into a book. And that was a limited edition thing that I could sell to my biggest fans, right? Like, I've always thought about doing that. I've always thought about doing character art, but it's usually really expensive. And if it's not expensive, sometimes artists can be a little flaky. So why not solve this problem with deepfakes? Take 1,000 different images, blend them all together, and you can pick and choose what you want in terms of characters. Does your character have a scepter? Okay. Your character have blonde hair? Okay. Your character have olive colored skin? Okay. And you can use the technology to create something that's never existed before, based on a body of work. I think that's really interesting. Another thing that this could potentially be a good thing for is for author photos. If you've got a bunch of author photos, you could potentially, I don't know how this would work, but you could potentially take your own author photos that have never existed. So like me, for example, I probably have dozens of different photos that I've taken as an author over the years. What if I could blend all those together into like a master author photo, and I could choose what I was wearing, or that sort of thing? Could be interesting. Could be very interesting. Another potential way to pursue this, because that's mostly images, but also through audiobooks. So I talked about deep faking your own audio. Well, having the author read their own audiobooks, right? Or even in a podcast. So like, for example, there's a company called Descript where you can feed your audio through it. And let's say I make an so I say blah, blah, blah. Well, I can edit that out, or I could replace the with more words. So I can say, oh, well, how about we do this, blah, blah, blah. And it'll basically, it'll sample my voice and make me say what I just said. And it'll sound so convincing that you will never know that I made a mistake, or that I inserted words after the fact into the recording. And that opens up a really interesting concept of what if the authors of the future could podcast without ever speaking into a microphone? We probably would have to speak into a microphone, but what if you could write a blog post and turn that into a podcast instantly using a double of your voice? I think it's interesting. I think also deep faking YouTube videos. I have a lot of different YouTube videos. Could be a very interesting thing to, most of my videos are me sitting on my couch talking to my audience, right? So I could take a video of me sitting on my couch talking to my audience, and I could just write a script and have a deepfake audio delivered, and have the technology move my lips and my eyes and all that to make it look like I'm actually giving the video, but I'm not. That could be a really easy way to produce videos in the future. There's lots of things. There's lots of promise with this technology as well, and there are companies out there that are trying to do good things with it. And so, So anyway, so when I think about this, there were three questions that kind of sprung to my mind instantly, and that is, what does the future hold for deepfakes? And there's a lot that we don't know yet in terms of what we can do, but I think based on the things that I've said so far, I think that a lot of the things I talked about are not a complete stretch, all right? And then the second question I had is, how can I start educating myself on the technology so that I can avoid some of the pitfalls, right? So I don't know what that looks like. Maybe it means building my own deepfake model just to see how easy it is. Maybe it means making sure that I'm on the lookout for this technology in the future when I'm thinking about the different blogs and podcasts that I follow, so that I can stay on top of that, and these watershed moments aren't going to catch me off guard as much as they catch other people off guard. And then the third question is, how can I position myself to take advantage of this technology in the future? And I've touched on that, but I think that definitely cover design, I think it'll be important. I think this is where this holds the most promise. I think about doing my own covers. And if I'm doing my own covers and I need a model, this potentially cuts down the amount of time and the amount of effort that I spend, where I can just go get the model I need and plop them on the cover. I think about character art, illustration. What if with every book release, I release some character art, and that character art was generated by deepfakes, right? And that could just be a value add to my readers to help them visualize the story, all right? And then, YouTube videos and things like that. I think that's much much further down the road. But it's definitely a call for you to start thinking about this technology as well. It sounds distant. It sounds like it's not terribly important, but at the end of the day, we are going to have to navigate a future where authenticity and integrity and being able to make decisions based on valid and accurate data is going to be more important than ever. And what are you doing to make sure that you have that skill set in the future? And then what are you doing to make sure that you can build your author career or pivot your author career to where you can benefit from the promise of that technology while also inoculating and protecting yourself from the dangers of it? Just some things I was thinking about as I was going through this. So anyway, interesting episode. I hope it gave you some food for thought. Next week, I'll be back with us. I don't know what I'm going to talk about yet, but it'll be another interesting topic. Hope that you're staying healthy. Hope that you're happy. Hope that you're getting some writing in. And I'll talk to you next week. Peace. Thanks for joining me this week. If you enjoyed this episode, you'll enjoy my backlist episodes at michaelaran.com/podcast. For your free starter library of my favorite novels, join my fan club by visiting michaelaran.com/fanclub. If you're a writer and want to connect with me further, check out my YouTube channel, Author Level Up, for helpful writing advice at authorlevelup.com. Thanks for listening, and I'll be back next week.